Welcome to another tutorial from Fabazine number 3, and this one involves the little card pouch, which is brilliant for putting on key rings and things. So on the panel you will find these 3 pieces here. Now these 2 are exactly the same size. This one, I think what I would call a smidgen smaller. See, just at the top there, just a tiny bit smaller, and that's because this one you are going to need to take the ironing board and press in half, because this one will form your little pocket. And then what you need to do is stitch on the little press stud that comes with it. Now there are little dots marked. It's a black dot, not a red dot, so obviously that would be confusing. But there are 2 little black dots marked on there, and that's where you need to sew on those press studs. This project uses a slightly different seam to what we've seen in the past. Usually we do seams and we turn things right side out. This one's actually got an exterior seam on, so we're going to look at that on the machine in a second. But first of all, we need to assemble it. So once you've got your 3 pieces, you've got your press studs on, and you've got that one that is a smidgen smaller folded in half, we can start to lay them up. So the darker spotty side is your outer, and then you need to add the little tab, and that's going to be so you can attach it to a key ring. So we'll put that just about there for now, and we might have to move it a tiny bit in a second. We're going to pop what would be the inside on, and it's important to line these up exactly around those edges. And my final piece, which is going to become the pocket, which is the one that's folded in half, that goes over the top but at the bottom portion, and make sure that these guys are opposite each other so that when you close it they can be snapped together. Now this positioning is pretty good. What you're looking for is you're looking for it to be kind of in line with the top of the pocket. So that was a good guess. So we're going to pop a pin in there, and you can put some more pins in all the way around, and then we're going to take it over to the machine and we'll talk about some different stitches that you can use. I'm at the machine now, and for this project you want either a decorative stitch or maybe a zigzag or a satin stitch around the edge, because you're going to see this seam. So really don't want any straight stitches on this. I would say go for your zigzag. I've selected a blanket stitch because that puts an edge on it as well, or you could go for anything like your satin stitch, or perhaps even a decorative one, but you are going to see the raw edges, remember, so something that's going to cover those is going to be helpful. So I've got mine set to a blanket stitch, so I'm going to take it over to the needle now. So what you're going to need to do is, once you've selected a stitch, you are going to need to just do a little bit of playing about with the settings to make sure that it is stitching correctly. And on this one you can see I just need to be a little bit mindful of where the edge of that stitch falls, because I don't want it to fall on top of the green, because I've got a scrap piece here, because it's always worth having a little play with the scrap piece first, just to make sure that you've got your bearings more than anything else, because all of the stitches are different. You see I've drifted off again. Let me just pull this out so I can show you. Okay, so we've got bits at the beginning here where I started and the stitch was just way too small, so we've adjusted, got a stitch length and width that I'm happy with, and then just got my bearings with where it hits that edge to make sure that when I come to sew my piece together, I'm not hitting the raw edges and I'm actually encompassing them with the stitch. Now you can obviously do this with a hand stitch as well if you want to. It's entirely up to you, but let's go over to the proper project and get that sewn. So that's your project complete. The last thing that you need to do is just trim off any of these kind of excess straggly threads. Now, because we've used this kind of external seam, you are always going to get a kind of more rustic finish. You're going to get bits where you can actually kind of see the fabric through underneath, the edges of the fabric through underneath. And because you put the press studs on first, that's kind of ready to go as your finished little project. Now you can add a little ring onto the end of there, like a jump ring, so you can put it onto keys if you wish, or once you've got the technique, you can make bigger and smaller versions of this to fit anything you like.